Hey guys, what's going on? So essentially did my Friday, Saturday, and today we are here on Sunday, and essentially what I'm going to be doing now is just moving over and annotating my charts. And yeah, once I've annotated them, I'll be moving them over onto my Notion document where I'll save them, and then historically I'll just have it there. So essentially but yesterday what I did was I went through my pairs, did the sort of forecast of what I'm looking at. I'll have a little run through it again, but only the pairs that I've chosen because I filtered through the ones before. Maybe I might take something out, who knows, but then right now I'll be going through the annotation stage of things and then just documenting it. So essentially, yeah, just going to go through it again, top down analysis, and pretty much go with it. So I've kind of put them in order of pairs opposed to order of my top 6 and my wild additional pairs. So yeah, we're gonna go through that. So we can see here on the higher time frame that yes, there is a potential for price to eventually come up to these areas here, which we can see on the weekly that we are pretty much in this sort of consolidation area. So I wouldn't be set on the buy just yet. I'll be waiting for the market to give me a message, but then when I kind of zoom in on the structure that I've outlined over here, we can see that we have 2 bottoms and potentially an internal structure there, but nothing is really completed. We can see that when we did reject, we had a really nice rejection. We retraced pretty much more than 50% back up and then started to correctively move to the downside. This could be an indication that we could be in a good area to look for a buy, to just buy in to fill that near miss there. So going on to the daily, what I can see here on the daily now on USD CAD is that the nice thing about this is we've given an obvious near miss here. We kind of came back up, we squeezed with a 1, 2, 3. There is the potential for this to fill to this area, but I don't think it's hugely likely. I think the high time frame would most probably take over, and we could just fill that. Depending on how the DXY is moving, we can then see the positioning, but right now I'm not really concerned so much about the DXY. I'm just more so looking at this as a structure as a whole to see that if we are going to move, could we move to fill this? Going into the 4 hour, we can then see that this is our value area. We've basically broken through this area, this area, this area. You know, we're moving to this sort of more higher probability area now, where what I will be keeping an eye on to just see is less on the structure, because we know that this was a part of its own piece of information. And then if we just pattern separate this for a second and we look at, and we'll take away this blue box for the near miss, is we will look at this as an area. Now in my eyes this is not fully complete yet, but we could be seeing something like this where this is just descending in corrective nature, 1 2 1 2, coming into the third touch over here, which happens to outline with this area here, which then becomes my value area. So I'll just be marking this on as my value area, which I've preset these over here. So my value area here, I'll put that at the bottom. Yep, so we've got the value area there, and essentially I'm just waiting to see how price reacts from that area. Now, given the nature of how price has moved on the fall, I am probably going to be looking for an impulsive approach at this point, where price just pretty much aggressively taps into it, maybe breaks a little bit forward, but then pushes back in and then gives me lower time frame confirmation. Then I'll be looking for it more so on the 1. I'm not going to be looking for a 15. I will be looking for the 1. And that would pretty much be the sort of flag I'm going to be looking for. A lot of my trades, which you'll notice, are looking to shape up around about 27th, 28th. So during the rest of the week, if the trade shapes up and it's missed, there might be another opportunity later on in the week, which would come into my daily forecasts. So this isn't something that I'll be forecasting right now as a plan B, but I am aware that, you know, because the majority of my watch list and additional pairs is looking to shape up around about the 27th and the 28th, at that point there I kind of have more of an insight that, okay, well, I know when I want to be sharp, but then I know that if there's a missed trade there, which is always a possibility, then I will look for the next trade, which could be later on in the week, because it would need a little bit more time to develop. So all in all, this is basically very prime and simple. if I mark this on as a simple 1, 2, 3, we can then see that we have this. I'm not married to this because I'm not too bothered if we just tap into it and then push away. It is what it is. Like if we got something like that, still be waiting for the same scenario, just maybe a little bit further up. Understanding price can get complicated in this area sometimes as well, so we could just trickle towards the end of the week and then all of a sudden maybe give it Wednesday, Thursday, we start pushing up. So this is basically what I'm going to be looking at. This trend line is not as relevant, but it does outline the structure of just seeing that price is coming in this descending nature, but more so it's not really required at this point. I am just more interested in this value area, push down, push up, but using those additional confluences there, that's giving me more bias to see that this is becoming a higher probability entry for me. So that's the coverage on USD CAD. And then just zooming out again, we have this area of liquidity, which I'll probably leave it on there because we can just see how we tapped into it. It kind of just paints the picture. And then this is the high value area that I'm going to be looking at, understanding that there is potential for this to push through and go further. But given how the DXY is, you know, this is all, there's also the possibility that we don't get this and essentially we just kind of push through, we create continuation, and then we continue to the downside. That is also a strong possibility, although I'm not too married to that. We could get something like this as well, where we get something a little bit larger, and then it comes into this area here as continuation, where it's just kind of working with that. But like I said, I am looking for the buy, so this is just one that I will be keeping on there. The next one I'm looking at over here is EuroCAD. EuroCAD has massive potential. I think this is more of an additional pair for me at the moment. However, we can understand two things. We can either push up now, tap into the high value area, and then we can sell from there with an impulsive approach, or we can then see it come in with a structured approach of that 1, 2, 3. Now, looking at it here on the weekly, we can see that, okay, we tapped into this area here, we broke through it, and then we just aggressively pushed up. Larger correction now to maybe give it enough volume to move up, right? So this can continue to the upside. There's that strong possibility as well, but what I do need to understand is that we are coming into this area of liquidity. So the most important thing here is that we have this as acting as a base for this larger structure, which has played its role. And I think now, more importantly, we just need to now see the confirmation to see if we can go short. So going into daily, going into this one more time, we can see over here that this has worked as the floor. So this was kind of more of this, if you want to use it as a support area, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's just more of a point of interest, a reference point, and we've tapped into that reference point, and then we've filled it. Here, just get a bit more accurate. So we filled it because we had a near miss, another near miss, and then we actually pushed through and pushed up. There was a flag in there, which was nice, very nice. And then now we're coming up here. As we come to these highs, this is where I want to be more on the evaluation side of things. Like, I'm not too interested in a buy, but I am interested to see if we do get, you know, something like this where, you know, we've come in here, we come back up, we come back down, we come in here, and then we sell. At that point there, you know, 15-minute flag wouldn't necessarily be the worst trade, in my opinion. I think there's massive upside downside potential there. Let's just quickly clean that up. Yep. So like I said, it could take some time to develop because this may not be ready next week. But what I am looking at more so is if for some reason that we do have this and then we come in here and then all of a sudden we just impulsively come up, then we could just look for the sell, and that might be ready by the end of the week. So really and truly, I just want to evaluate how we get there at this point. There's no clear indication that we are going to get that 1, 2, 3 at this point, but if we do, like I said, this could be pretty much where we want to be positioning ourselves for the short. So let's just wait and see how that plays. It might be a bit too soon to speculate exactly on it, but could there be a trade in there for a buy? Yeah, absolutely. But as we know many times previously, And as we've seen here, there was a near miss there, then we had that bigger near miss, that pullback, and then we dropped off. We could be in this sort of stage here, where you can see the small near miss here, small near miss there, larger sort of gap, once again, larger gap here, and then we had this sort of massive pullback, where we could be in that massive pullback stage before we come back up and fill it. So there's a lot of variables on the table there, and I think really and truly for me, this would be pretty much the line in the sand, because in terms of a sequential point of view, we can see that we did push down, flag, push down, kind of creating that larger sort of flag under here. It's a bit messy, but then we could continue to the downside. So I wouldn't just be looking for longs. I would also understand that, yeah, shorts could be on the table as well, but more so I'm not looking for that sort of size of structure right now. I'll be more so interested to just see if we do correctively sort of come into this area, then I could probably see this as a base, and then we push in, we push back, we maybe get a continuation flag, and then we can go long. And I think that's more so something that I am interested in right now than taking a short position. But we'll have to wait and see on that, because as I said previously, there's a lot of variations of what could form here. But yeah, more than likely, with this being a bit corrective, we could just see this push up, kind of come up here, and then do this, and then over the course, by some point in December, we're ready for the big sell. So I wouldn't be counting on this to be ready for that big sell next week, but I would be looking for some good positioning in there, and just understanding that something like this is truly very possible. So let's just quickly mark that up. So override high, this would be my sort of value area, point of interest, reference point for me, down, bottom, and then I'll just be waiting to see how that reacts. Obviously this kind of acts as a line in the sand as well. We have to understand that if we do break below, and using this one quickly, if we do break below this and start continuing below that, you know, there's a strong possibility that we could either be in a large flag. It still holds a lot of risk to it because we have the near miss, but understanding there's so much potential in the market right now, we'll then have to be just evaluating that. So I am more so looking to see how we sort of push up here. Do we near miss, create something a little bit more tight, and then we go up again, and then hopefully by Friday we're up in this area somewhere, and then price just drops by the following week and we're ready to go. This was one that I was kind of debating if I should have it on watch, if I shouldn't, so I'm going to put this one at the bottom of my list and come back to it towards the end of the video. And I'll put USD CAD in there, and then we'll go to Euro GBP. Euro GBP weekly, looking pretty nice, to be honest. It does look quite messy when you kind of look at it here, but I think zooming out like this and just kind of seeing it for what it is, we can see that, you know, this is a very corrective price action for sure. You know, a lot of wicks and stuff as well, so it comes with the territory of taking this. Of course, there's massive potential in here. It's just understanding that, you know, when we're moving, we do kind of respect sort of trend lines, but at the same time, yeah, you just got to know the territory of it, because we do get some sort of wicky natures on the daily as well. So don't expect price to be very clean. I would say it will be clean once you're at the value area, but between then there's a lot of noise. So I'm going to keep it very simple and use this as a reference point, because it does pretty much align with this area here as well. But yeah, I'll be using that as a reference point, so call it a point of interest. Reason it's a point of interest is because it's very subjective. Reference point will be something which is more, for me, it's more here. But I would say because we have these lows here, I'm not looking at that point here. I'm just kind of looking at this as an area, and I just want to see a larger flag develop to get the sell in there. So I will be keeping that on close watch. What I do like is it's still below this area here. If I just put that there, it's still below this area here. So kind of creating that flag, retesting the back end of this low to then continue with the sell, kind of has pretty good context to it. So I'll be waiting to see how that develops. I think that's also going to be one which could be a game changer. If we do just dramatically sell off, then I could potentially be looking for a potential buy, because of the corrective squeeze towards the downside, but I think more than likely I'll be looking for a structure to get a short in before I get to the buy. Once again, if there is a buy on the table, that's something that I will be re-evaluating closer to the date. And this would be a value area, because we can smash through it, really and truly. We can smash through this and just continue going to the next point over there. But like I said before, we'll evaluate that, because more so I'm seeing this as a larger structure here, where we have all of this corrective momentum being built up here, and now we're just starting to move out of it. And these sort of areas are where I want to be positioning myself to go short, because then if we commit and we just start going, then you've positioned yourself extremely well. And then just being aware of the next value area, which is on the way here, and then obviously down to these areas here. So more so interested right now just in that value area, but from the point of interest to it, and then playing that simple range play. In terms of a risk reward, I will just quickly have a little look at that. Yeah, there's easily, I could probably get away with a 10. I'll probably just squeeze in a little bit extra to call it 13, maybe even 14. But 10 more than enough. I think 10 would be perfect, to be fair. I don't think I need to add a little bit extra on that. If we do get something like this, yeah, there's easily a 3 to 1 in there to that low. So I think that would be very nice. And then if we do see this as pushing through here, going to the next point, you have about a 7 to 1, and then you could be trading maybe even like almost a 20%. So looking at it like that is actually pretty nice. GA, yeah, so GA on a higher time frame sort of perspective over here, we can see, so we have a high value mass psychology area here that we're not going to get there anytime soon, but it's good to just understand that that's a possible. We had a bit of a hook point over here, not the most significant, but we did get a very strong reaction from it, which is also very nice. We ascended into corrective behavior, and then we pushed away after that massive push away, which I'll just clear off this little dot. After that massive push away, we can see we did start creating this larger flag. There's more than enough accumulation of volume in here for this to just sell, right? Which I fully understand, but I'm not looking for perfection here, but I am looking for this to potentially come to here at some point. If we do get a trade in there, that's, okay, the correction is quite large, but there's a massive potential that this could be a very good sell. There's also looking at this internally, which for me is a little bit of a lower quality sort of position compared to the larger picture. But looking at how this is, Aussie pairs next week are looking like they are going to go strong bullish as well. So if that does happen, we could see something reacting on here as well. I am going to be looking at something closer here. It's very subjective first touch there for sure. And then I would like to just see if that we do get a reaction of any of these areas. A clear impulsive push down, flag continuation, maybe even if we start trading back down here, then we kind of fulfill this size of this sort of 1, 2, 3 into that sort of override area. We have a near miss there, which is very obvious, and then we have something which is more parallel. So I am looking to see if I can play that within here to get a short to go low. And then if I take this, and let's just put on this section over here, if I take that and I put on our risk reward on there, even with a reduced risk, which I think isn't a problem, could get away with reduced risk. Yeah, I could probably even see that trading to this low, you're looking at about 7% to that low to complete that. And then over here it could just get messy, go sideways, tap into this and then go. So there's massive potential here for a trade there as well. So I'm more than happy to have that one on watch as well. This one is probably one that's probably going to shape up sooner than EG and possibly UC, so I will probably put that above them. Then I've got Aussie, just double check the time, yep. Then I've got Aussie New Zealand. Aussie New Zealand as well, I think, a little bit like EG. Sometimes it's just because it looks a bit messy when you haven't got anything on there. When you look at it like this, then you kind of think, okay, what am I actually looking at? But then when you kind of are able to decipher and go through it, you can then see that, okay, we are basically kind of in this sort of massive wedge. We're kind of trading into these sort of value areas. I would say this is more so the high value area down here. And this is more the sort of more of the higher probability value area that I am looking at as well. But I think that the distance when I measured it was quite large between here and here. Yeah, no, that could easily tap into there. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see as we approach these areas. Very neutral with this at the moment as well, because if I just quickly go to the 4, we can see that we had a strong push up, very corrective now on the way back down. So it's very possible that we could be seeing more bullish momentum before we go short. The higher time frame doesn't really paint me the clearer short yet. You know, I am looking for something a little bit more on the side of a clearer picture here. I'm not really seeing that. So if I go to the Aussie New Zealand on the 4, we can see over here that we have a 1-2. We have a near miss there. We cleared it with a 1-2-3. We pushed away, clear flag, and then as we pushed away, we then had this sort of formation here, which then is kind of giving me an idea that are we playing this? Are we playing this as a range? And if this is a range, then we know that this could be continuation to the upside. So the short is a little bit less probable for me at this point, because I think I would want to be positioning at the top or bottoms of these structures, because more than likely this would have to be a very aggressive play. The buy though, on the other hand, from this low would be better. So I think if I'm really going to be looking to take something, I think I'll be looking at it over here, and then just understand that we have all of this area here to play with, and then we take this away, clear that off, clear this off, and then we look at this as one big range. And then we can see that, okay, cool, now we know what we're really working with. Are we then seeing this as coming back down into this area to maybe break a little bit and then push back up, create a flag, continue to the upside, and then we fill this, and then we just play this whole range to then go to the upside? It's possible. It's very possible. So I think, once again, this would be more of an additional pair for me, because I'll be more interested in seeing that. But I would want to see some sort of solid commitment. If I am going to be taking a 15, it would be somewhat of much higher risk. So I think the 1 would be a little bit more preferred. But I do understand that the 15 is there as well as a possibility. So it would be very situational for me. The only negative I have is, like, you know, the sort of structure. You know, this could just become a very corrective sort of move lower, and then you have something like that, which I wouldn't really say is impossible. But you know, when I look at Aussie New Zealand for a short, I am looking at something like this, you know, where you can see direct momentum. You know, these are the sort of sequences I want to be involved in. Right now I'm not seeing that as a sequence here, so I think because of that I want to be very careful and just see that, are we just playing a range here before we move higher? And yeah, I mean, we can see that this is a clear sort of impulse correction. If we get another impulse, another larger correction, we could see something like that into this area to then go long as well, and then seeing this as the larger sort of range. But like I said, it's a very subjective trade, and I think there's definitely, if you have it on watch, be very careful with it, because you could have this on watch but easily not take a trade on it. So it's one of those ones where I think personally, for someone who's quite newer or isn't, you know, reaching some level of consistency, I wouldn't probably put it on watch, to be honest, because it could be an easy tag in, tag out situation. So like I said, definitely an additional pair for me. Aussie New Zealand, I think Aussie US dollar, definitely one of my most favorited ones so far. The reason why I say that is, if I go to the weekly quickly, we can see that on the weekly we haven't had the most impulsive behavior. Like, yes, we've had these huge candles here, we've retraced with a huge candle, sort of corrected in here, and if we have a little close evaluation on it, we can then see that very clear sort of impulse, push down, impulse, sort of corrective squeeze. Now it's just not your sort of typical sequence to the upside where, you know, you get something very direct, impulse, sort of correction, impulse, sort of running channel, then correctively comes into a value area and then conveniently sells off into a larger correction. And then once again, I'm seeing this now as a potential larger range, and then this is just the corrective play coming back down into this area right? And I think that's basically what I am looking at. So I'm seeing this as more of a higher value area right now, and I'll mark that on as a value area quickly. Yep. So I'm seeing this as the value area. Then I'm going into the fall. Not too concerned about this override, I'll be honest with you. I am more interested in seeing how we get a push down and a flag from here, because of how structure is forming. Not your cleanest middle section, but you can see it, you can make it, and then just zoom to the one. It then becomes a little bit more clear, absolutely. But like I said, just kind of trickling this way now. Would I take the buy? Probably not. I think more than likely I'm going to wait, let this do its thing, come push out, come back in, create a clear 1 hour flag for me, which could be shaped up, you know, by Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday. Could be a bit smaller actually, to be fair. So in this range, not looking for perfection here, but something as clear as that, where, you know, it's been very obvious on what we've done here. We've come in with this sort of looking like it's impulsive over here, and then sort of correctively started, came back down, pushed back up. Now we've just kind of getting that sort of reversal off an ascending channel here, and then we're looking for that short. So I like this a lot. I really do like this a lot, and I think this could easily make it into my top 6. It's very similar GA situation. GA is just not positioned in the best place possible, but if we do look at it as the potential for the larger structure, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, this one over here I think is a little bit positioned a little bit better actually, in my opinion. It's just when I look at it on the higher time frame structure, it just doesn't it jumps out a lot more to me, but GA just doesn't jump out to me as much right now. I think only when we're in these areas, then I'd be looking at it more so like this. So Aussie US dollar is a little bit more developed for me than GA, and I think right now, in terms of the sequence, in terms of, you know, how it's playing, it could be a lot more of a better play. Obviously, with how the DXY is moving, that also plays a massive factor to this, because if the DXY does start to aggressively sell off, then, you know, we're going to see things like Aussie and stuff push through this and start pushing up higher. So we have to understand that, yes, sometimes price can be a little bit corrective and not really look great, but then sometimes something more can override what you might be seeing on one chart, and what you see on another chart could be taking over and then bringing in the volume. So what I'm seeing here is very similar to what I saw on Aussie US dollar, and I'll just quickly go to the weekly. We can see that we are coming in with that bit of a momentum run. We pull back around about 50% of the candle correctively, then we kind of zoom in on the daily to see that, and we can see that price wasn't very clear. You know, we can see that we have this sort of, it is corrective. I mean, you go to the 4, you can see it a little bit more clean, but it's not my typical middle section, I'll be honest with you. Then as we are approaching this value area, I'm then looking to see that I'm looking for the rejection. There is this override aspect here to it as well, and I think for me this was kind of playing its toll, because an override can play, but I think kind of going back and kind of thinking about it from a very good analytical point perspective, and I might just add the middle section here. It looks a lot cleaner than Aussie US dollar. We can then see that it just makes more sense to wait for it to get to the value area. So what I will be doing is let this kind of do all its nonsense, come up to this value area, push back down, and give me a clear 1 hour flag. Is there a reason why I wouldn't be looking for the 15? Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for something which is got a little bit less risk to it, because really and truly, you know, if I was considerably higher up in my account right now, yeah, I could take the risk and go for something on the 15. But I think given how the high time frame picture is, this isn't the most highest of value areas as well, and given that the DXY could potentially go aggressive on the short, which then pushes New Zealand US dollar to the upside, I could be caught out on the wrong side of the market on a smaller, tighter flag within this move. So I kind of want this to just give me a clear indication that, okay, we've impulsively pushed back down from the value area. Big players are now coming into the market, and I can now start positioning myself accordingly. So yeah, I'm going to be moving that one above Aussie US dollar, only because structurally it makes a little bit more sense, but they're both equally as good as they could be. And I think the run on New Zealand US dollar is phenomenal. Wicked. So then I've got Euro USD over here. So Euro USD is a bit of a more interesting play, and I'll go to the DXY at the end. I think we could be in this sort of range. So I'm looking at this to go to long, but understand that we can still go short, right? We are basically trading at this area here, but it's not as significant as sort of that area there. So I'm not going to let that hold massive weight towards the direction of this trade. What I am looking at, and I'll just go quickly back to the weekly, is strong momentum to the upside. With this strong momentum, it would make sense to see some sort of pullback before we start moving to the upside, which I'm pretty sure you can agree with. Then we can see over here that we do have some sort of level for reference point. I am not looking at kind of dropping down to these lows to create something larger. I just think that would be a bit abnormal. I think at this point here, looking at how structure is moving, if price did just reject here, it just drops, and then started correctively coming in, okay, fine. That's the only time I would basically be looking at that area there to then see something like that. Okay, that would make more sense to me. But right now, the way I'm seeing this is this just going to come up, correct, tap into this area, push down, create a flag, continue, make its way to the low, push back up, create a flag over here, and go. So looking at two ways. We either have a near miss and we just sell off early, and then we kind of come in here and we push up, and then we get that scenario that I spoke about where we could have something like that. But I think more than likely right now, we might just see this kind of come up, tap into this area, push down, give me that flag, and we go. So I'll be looking at something like this for a 1 hour short, which I'll just go to the 1 hour. And the nice thing about it is it's kind of giving us the idea that we could just see two bottoms, two tops. So this could then become a two-touch flag, which wouldn't be uncommon with this pair. So then we're just seeing this as doing whatever it needs to do, gets its way up here, pushes a bit higher, pushes back in. If it does that, cool, it is what it is, might maybe even becoming expanding. I am looking for this to come into this area, and then at that area there I can then be looking for shorts. And then as we come back down to this area, then I can be looking for longs again. So just looking at this as an overall range play, and it's that simple. So like I said, this is not fully confirmed, this top yet, so I wouldn't get married to it, but I'll just call that the value area 1. And this would also be a value area 1, but this is more so my point of interest. Reason being this is more of a point of interest is because I would want to see how price approaches this low in order for me to go long. If it comes down very aggressively, then I understand that perhaps maybe data could have changed and something else is happening. So I want to really evaluate that and understand what's happening there. But like I said, we'll give it some time, let it develop, and then we can take advantage of the structure once it's there. But I think this is a very, very simple play where we have this is the value area 1, value area 2, value area 3. We either push back down, we get the buy in here, and then we can start playing along to the next value area where then this could become something larger if possible, probably not, maybe a running channel, who knows, it's too early to speculate on it. And then we just continue this, seeing this move in this sort of trending direction like that, and then we can see something like this, and it's just correctively moving and making its way higher, and that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. You know, we do move in these sort of corrective channels. This could just be the larger channel, a lot of opportunity in there, so I wouldn't sleep on that for sure. I would just kind of keep it very, very aware that we are in the dominant direction of the upside right now, and we could be positioning ourselves for very good long positions, but don't neglect the shorts, because as you can see historically, shorts do have a very aggressive play, and if you position yourself correctly, you can walk away with, you know, a couple, if not 10% on a very quick play by just good positioning. So bear that in mind, but also just understand the risk factors that come with it. So this one will easily just be here with New Zealand US dollar and Aussie US dollar, so they kind of will be there. I think very primed as well for next week. Looking at Aussie yen, Aussie yen is similar to New Zealand yen in some ways, but the only difference I'm seeing this compared to Aussie yen and New Zealand yen is there is some higher value areas up here, but if you do measure it between the high over there, it's about 600 and then about 400. It's not your typical sort of amount that you'd be seeing move in a week, but we could see this as you know, just one large corrective range. Once again, we are coming in there with some corrective momentum as well, so I am looking at something like this sort of area. I mean, I am looking this more so to go to the upside, but I do understand that we could get a nice short in there as well whilst we're waiting. We're coming into this value area. We had an obvious near miss over here to the low. We kind of had this sort of section here where we originally came in here, we broke it, we came in, we had this sort of three touch in here as well. You know, it's now just becoming one big larger range of just multiple structures of just a lot of accumulation of volume. And I think looking at this, if I separate this pattern and then I separate this pattern, it would make more sense. But just given how price has been developing, it didn't come back down for this touch, and I think for that I'm not really interested in this structure. I'm more so interested in what's happening over here, because if we are looking at those as the higher value areas, who's to say that we don't get something like that, and then we correctively come back down, and then we come back up for another scoop, and then we start getting back into these areas before we actually sell, and then we have something a little bit larger. Hey, there's a lot of possibilities there, so that's why I wouldn't say get married to the sell just yet, but I would say going into the 1 hour, we have a very clear area. So we're coming into that value area. I would want to see this kind of clearly push up aggressively, do whatever it has to do, come back down, give me a clear 1 hour flag, and then I could potentially play the short into this area here. And I think easily, if I do get into a good entry over here with, call it around about, I think 15 should suffice there as well. I could probably take that for a 7 into there and a 12% into there as well. So that would be the trade I'm really kind of looking at right now. Understanding we can go long, and then if we do start pushing long, you know, I would be looking for something quite impulsive, and then some sort of larger structure up here to then potentially go long on that. And that would be my long play gameplay on there, but I am also looking to see if I can get the short. So in my opinion, this one will kind of be in line with these New Zealand and Aussie pairs, but just to keep them grouped, I'll put them just under. But I think these yen pairs are looking phenomenal. Going into CAD yen, I think CAD yen as well has massive upside potential. Going into the weekly over here, what we can see is clear value area up here. Okay, if I just tap that on, we have a clear value area over there. We've broken above this area here, which was basically the value area we were eyeing up, and now we can just see that this kind of doesn't look like your typical sort of larger structure here. This kind of looks as we could just be running to the upside. Going into the daily, we do understand that if this is a structure for a reversal, which makes sense because, you know, this isn't your typical sort of continuation to the upside, we can see that we had a strong push on the daily, then we started correctively moving sidewards within this range. We did kind of break above, reject, kind of got a bit more messy, created a middle section in here, and then if you go to the 4 for a bit of refinement, trust me, there was really nice entries on the way up here. This one was phenomenal. We could then see continuation after continuations, moving to the upside, becoming a little bit more corrective, and then who knows, in no time we could be up here, then looking for a potential sell. So this is where I'm going to be looking to see if I can get another entry. This one was a mistrade for me. It was stunning, absolutely stunning, this trade here, but it was, yes, a mistrade. The trade would have been taken around about, you could have even taken it here without the 15 refinement and just understood the trade, and then just for any reason you could have taken 18 pips, and I think you would have been very aggressive by the time you were running 5. You could have easily walked away with about, I would say, about 4%. 4% would have been your best bet over here on this trade, just because of how aggressive it moved away. And then now we're in this area, I'll be looking for this continuation flag. So positioning would be over here. It could come into a 2-touch flag, which very similar to this one, and yeah, about 20 pips would be extra safe, just to kind of outline it. Could come in here, could go tighter, who knows, and then trading it into that high point over here, could be looking at about 5% there. before we see another larger correction, but it could push through that, go aggressive to the next point of about 7 to 8%. And then we know that bigger time frame picture, there's a lot of room for this to go to the upside. You know, this can really start rallying and pushing through this, which wouldn't be uncommon for a CAD-Yen pair. So a buy has a lot of upside potential for me. Yes, I would be a little bit more aggressive with that position compared to this one and the ones down here, but understanding that, yeah, we have this as a inflection point over here, and then we have this as kind of more for higher yet value area, but it's more for override, and then we have the 1 2 3. So this would be your middle section. Let's see if I can pop that on middle section, and then I'll take that bit off just for simplicity. We'll see this as the 1 2 3, and then I'll see this as my override 1, and then I'll see this as my value. Sorry, this would be my override 1, and this would be the override 2. I'm not really seeing this as the major override though, but just understanding that it could play a factor of rejecting from here, because there is more than enough, but more than likely we'll see that as the point of interest, the third touch up here. So we'll go in there, and yeah, we'll just let that play. I mean, really and truly, I don't really need that ray line. I'm going to keep it so simple and just manage it accordingly. I understand that we could be coming into that point, but this doesn't hold as much weight as the points above. So if I was gonna just put it in there, I would just kind of say it's a little bit of an inflection point for sure. Just an inflection point, that's all it is. But the true area of interest is over here. This would be my override high. And then understanding that the push through is what I'm really looking to play. We could correctively start squeezing back down, and I think that's more likely given how I've evaluated everything. And then we could just come into here and then kind of push up and continue. Wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, CAD-Yen below Aussie Yen, just because I'm going to be looking for the long and requires a bit more, but the sell on Aussie Yen looks phenomenal. But like I said, usually these pairs, they tend to move together, but sometimes CAD-Yen can go before Aussie Yen could go before. You know, the only one that I really trade on its own merit is usually Euro Yen and USD Yen. But this week I haven't got USD Yen on there. Looking at New Zealand Yen, so New Zealand Yen is actually very much similar to my Aussie Yen play, which I do kind of like about those. They kind of do work together in a sense, like their structures. If you know, if like for example Aussie US dollar is looking good, you know New Zealand US dollar is probably looking good. Same with the yen pairs. So it's just the many times I've seen that New Zealand Yen is lagging behind the other yen pairs. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it forms, but we can see this is looking a lot better in terms of its corrective squeeze to the upside. The middle section here doesn't look phenomenal on the weekly, but if you do come in on the daily as well, you can see that there is an aspect of it, but I wouldn't class this as my typical reversal structure, hence the reason when we did have that retrace we didn't commit. We are coming in for that typical sort of M-star feel to it, but if I zoom out we can see that there is this possibility for us to fill to this value area, and then more than likely if we tap into that value area, we're only roughly around about 150 odd pips, 160 pips away from the high value area. So it's likely that we're just going to continue pushing to the upside, knowing that if we go back and we look at CAD-Yen, it would make sense to continue pushing to the upside, and then we look at Aussie Yen and then we understand pushing to the upside. So looking for longs as well as being neutral and looking for shorts, I think makes a lot of sense. So going into the 4, I will be looking for a continuation to the upside. As long as we're below that low, we're good. And I'm just going to invert this quickly so you can see it as a short. You know, we can see that on a momentum perspective, we've pretty much aggressively been moving to the downside. We could see some sort of larger pullback before we sell as well, so we have to understand that as a variation. But the dominant direction of these pairs right now are to go into its trend, which is to the upside. So bear that in mind. That would be kind of below my CAD-Yen trade, but like I said, massive potential. And then once again, weekly time frame, we can see clear indication on oops, sorry about that. On EJ, we can see that, you know, a clear high value area, nothing really stopping along the way, and then we can see that we had a 1, 2, 3. I'd say that's somewhat more irrelevant right now, because even if that completes, we're so close to that high value area, it just works as an extra confluence. So the reason why I wanted to put this on here is to just say you can simply just remove it. Don't let it kind of convince you or confuse you with your trade. I would say just go to the daily, look at your most clearest value area, understand you're looking for buys, and then just play that, you know. And there could be a short in here, yes, but the override could be taking over whilst these other yen pairs are moving. So I'm looking to play the counter trade on here as well, so very neutral once again, but like I said, a lot of data can change. If we can get this as a simple range play where we do get this, correctively comes up, pushes down, breaks out of this corrective squeeze, creates a continuation, and we continue to the downside, and we get into here, then we can look for a clear buy and go to the upside, and then maybe we can play the buy all the way back up here. I think that's an ambitious trade for sure, but it has a lot of potential to it. So that's kind of more so what I will be looking for on EJ. Massive potential for sure. Just got to give it some time to develop, but we also understand as the variation is, you know, we could push out, clear continuation, and just continue to the upside in a very corrective manner, which we're seeing over here. So it could take a lot of time, and you might see it some leading up to the back end of December to January, and then by the time we could see ourselves up here. So we know the dominant direction of these pairs. It's just now about positioning ourselves correctly to get involved with them. And I think looking at something in this sort of size here, positioning makes a lot more sense to me. It's just we know it's very corrective, and I'd be very wary and understanding of that when taking these. So that would be my least likely scenario of these yen pairs, but I really do like it for another one. And then last but not least on my watch list over here, I have EuroCAD. Now EuroCAD is basically phenomenal. I'll be honest with you, very phenomenal. We can see here that we tapped into this value area over here, so I'll call this the higher value area, HVA, and then put that at the bottom. Oops. Yep, so that's more of my higher value area here. We tapped into it, aggressively pushed away, larger correction. We tapped into it, one near miss, two tapped into it here, and then we pushed away. We saw this one earlier when I was talking about it, and I think from a gameplay, this makes sense for an impulse correction continuation, and it looks like with this impulsive leg, this could be the leg to continue moving to the upside. However, we have to also understand that this can still just be a larger range. So rather than getting convinced that, okay, we're looking at this now, it's ready to go to the upside, we can still see it come down to potentially make one section, two sections, and a third section, giving us this larger corrective play here to then give it enough volume for this to be ready by next year to just fly. So on a selling point, this could be a very nice sequence to the downside. I will be looking to see how we can approach this. I am looking to see if we do get a 1, 2, 3. This is more so, I would say, a soft watch pair for me this week. Kind of just looking at it again now. Only reason being is because I don't truly believe that it will be very much ready, but it can surprise you. We might just get a lot of volume in the market. We might push up, push back down, give us a flag, and then next thing you know, by Thursday, Friday, we're ready with a flag, and then we're in a trade for the short. So once again, it'll be a soft watch pair for me, but I'll be now adding these into my weekly watch list, and then once I finish adding these into my weekly watch list, for those who aren't already aware, I'll then be looking to add them into my Notion document, and yeah, that'll basically be it. So just literally going through these pairs quickly, adding them all on, making sure that they're all there. Yep. So just give me a second. Alright, wicked. So essentially got them all on there. So what I've done by doing that is I'm now going to group them cool. actually like to put my daily watch list at the bottom. Yeah, nice. So, and then I'll color coordinate them just for simplicity for myself, and then green. Cool. Pretty happy with that. To be fair, I could just squeeze it in there, but you know, I kind of like the separation of this. And then yeah, so that's basically it now. So I'm quite happy with that. Let me just go back and just check my annotations. I think that line can go easily as well. Yeah, I can see it very clear. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, breaking this trend in this corrective manner, that value area is definitely one where I'm going to be looking to see if we can push long again. That's looking so good, honestly. Anyway, let's go off and look at these. So, yep, we've annotated that. I could just pop on liquidity there. It's irrelevant at this point anyway, but for the screenshots, I think it makes a lot of sense. Looking back on it 2 years from now, you know, and I'm like, oh, okay, I understand why I looked at something like that, but with the improvement, maybe I wouldn't be looking at it. Maybe I would be. Who knows? Yep. So I'm happy with that. There's also this 1, 2, 3 here, which I'll just oops. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Okay, and then over here, I am looking at this as a 1, 2, 3 as well. Not too bothered about it. There's that override. Yep. Cool. Happy with those annotations. I could remove these, to be fair, not really that relevant. I will add on my alerts as well. To be fair, I haven't got a chance to do it in this video yet, but those are something I will be doing as well, which I do urge you guys to do as well. If you don't, is just pop on your alerts. Hang on a second. Yep, that is an override. I'll tell you something as well. The reason why I put POI on sometimes and not reference point or value area is just because it's very subjective. We don't really know that that's the area. Like, it could come down, get a bit larger, it could become something a little bit messy. So what it does, it tells me that it is an area of interest, but something else can happen as well. So it's not as high a probability as this being an override, where we could tap into this and then maybe even reject from there. Understandable. So I hope that made sense. And yeah, so then we've got this as a simple range play. So I'm just going to put that as an override high, and then this would be my override low. And then that's just a simple range play I'll be looking at. Over here, so yeah, that very subjective, you know, and I'll tell you something about that. I would say this will be evolved at some point, and we may even get something a little bit more in that sort of area here. We take this, and it could become like that. Just when I say internal, now I'm happy with that. Yeah, there's so many possibilities to something like this. I'd say really and truly this would be my override. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, happy with that. So this is more cool. Sometimes it can get a bit messy with the annotations, but as long as you can read through it, that's the most important thing. You do want to keep it as clean and as easy as possible. Something like that, you know, simple. Value area, push down, push up, simple. And then, you know, you can decipher that within seconds without having to kind of read through it. So definitely look at that one. Let me invert this one for a second. Yeah, that looks so stunning, honestly. Could this be a middle section? Is something that I'm also just looking at for a second, because that also makes sense. And I think for that reason there, very subjective first touch, but clear sort of structure, kind of works in as sort of this. Just invert it back. Yeah, it looks so different when you flip it. Go to the daily. Yeah, I do really think this has massive potential. Anyway, I am not interested in worrying so much about that. I am interested in seeing this. And I'll go there and I'll just say that this is my value area up here. Oops. So this is more of my higher value area right now. And then over here, I'm looking at this as my override low. Cool. So yeah, I'm looking to see if we tap into this, we push up and we continue to the upside. And then I think I've finished this one off. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm all happy with that now, and I can take this and I can go and put it on my Notion. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to open up the Notion and just kind of copy and paste them and then note them. So this is basically how I end off my Sunday market breakdown. Wicked. So just to finalize here before I start adding them on here, we just did a DXY. So we can see over here on the DXY, very similar to we saw in Euro USD. We are basically, and I'll quickly actually go to weekly just for people who haven't seen this. So we have this massive corrective sort of squeeze, 1, 2, 3 middle section, came into this liquidity area. And then as we did it, we pushed above aggressively, came back down, and then within here we had this larger correction. We came into the 50% rule of this move here. So 50% of this overall downwards move, tapped into it, but we've correctively moved away, which is slightly off-putting, but we can still see that there is momentum to the downside. So of course we're not looking for the sell forever, but we understand that eventually we can be pulling up to the upside. We can then see that we had this correction and then we're sort of forming this larger sort of area here. So what I will be looking to see is if we do see this as the larger range play like we saw in Euro USD, where we have the similar correction over here, this then becomes a larger flag, and then we can see the same thing on the DXY. So for that reason alone, I am interested to see if we can get that play. So we'll be looking at that. So I'm going to be I'm not going to be looking for the buy at all on DXY, definitely the short, because that is the dominant trending direction. And yeah, so we'll just pretty much take 2 screenshots here, and I'll be taking off this one here, which is the daily, which I think that's more than enough. Take off the daily here, and then probably the hourly. I think I'm happy with that. And I do this in a different sequence, so I take the screenshots and then I go back and annotate it after. I've just found it to be a lot easier that way, but if you want to, you can do them bit by bit, and I'll just speed the video up because it's quite a monotonous task. Amazing. So yeah, basically essentially finished what I needed to do now. So I basically put in my trades here. This is how I'm going to be taking them next week, and essentially I've put them in there. You'll probably see a lot of similarities with my trades, which is also something that I would urge a lot of you as well to want to do, is have a lot of similarities, understand your trades, exactly how you want to be taking them and so forth. Sometimes obviously you can't always follow the plan to the T, but now what I'm going to be doing is, and I'm not going to film the rest of it, but I'm just going to be annotating each and every snapshot, and then I'll have that ready to go for next week. So guys, obviously this video is probably dragged on quite a long time. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a message or comment below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.